Hello and good evening. It is me alone tonight. Now, I have to be honest, I was just typing out a message that said, I'm running late, one of the kids is awake. So, Joseph has been crying upstairs, so if I need to go, I'm going to have to go because obviously I'm alone tonight. I'm just trying to find it. There it is. I was trying to find the post. So that's it. Unfortunately for me, I am alone. I'm on my own, on my Todd. Anything else you want to say? So I've got to do everything. I've got to ask the questions. I've got to host. I've got to mediate. If I end up having an argument with Emily tonight, it's just me having an argument with myself. So I've got to deal with all of these things. As I mentioned though a second ago, one of the kids was stirring. So hi Hannah. So if I need to go, I'm just going to have to run off, and I will. But I'll happily come back on later on. I have nothing to do until I go to bed tonight. So that's where we're at. But if I cue my smug face for just a moment, I did have all the kids asleep by just after 7 o'clock, which is normal. So I was quite pleased with myself. Hello, Katie. You all right? Thank you for joining us this evening. So we have an absolute smorgasbord of entertainment this evening. I am living out my fantasy. Yes, my wife, my best friend, my business partner, my other half, if we were conjoined twins, is not here with me tonight. But I get to fulfill a dream of mine of I'm hosting my own show. I am hosting my own show, and unfortunately, you lot are watching. Thank you, Kaylee. Glad you noticed. I will come to my suit in a moment. So, interestingly, talking of my suit, as I was getting dressed, I've had a haircut today. I don't know if you can notice that. And my suit, I felt like a Peaky Blinder in a yellow suit. I don't know if for Series 5 they're going to be rocking yellow suits like this, but perhaps the Peaky Blinders should be rocking yellow suits. That's my thoughts. I may feed that back. I'll tweet that to them. So, or whatever. Does anyone Twitter anymore? Is Twitter even relevant? That's the question on tonight's Ask an Expert. No, it's not. We have some fab questions tonight, but I'm going to have a bit of a what have we been up to before we go into the questions. We've got two very good questions. And as always, if you'd like to ask any questions whilst we're live tonight, you can absolutely do that. First of all, I'm going to discuss why this chair here is empty. So Emily here, bless her, she's literally, as we speak, 8:05, her plane is taken off from Heathrow to Johannesburg in South Africa, where she will then land tomorrow morning for a few hours, then flies on to, where's she going straight? She's going to Namibia. I was trying to work out where she's flying into. Well, I would have assumed Windhoek, the capital. I feel I should know this. And she's going to take part as a volunteer of one of the, do you know these like desert races where people spend a week running across a desert? Well, Emily's volunteering on one of them in the Namib Desert. So it's not the first time her or I have done that. We try and get involved every other year or so, whether it be running it or volunteering it, and it's Emily's turn. She's absolutely gutted she's leaving the kids, as I would be as well. But adventure is a part of our life. And Emily is off to do that for 11 days. So it's me by myself this week and next week. My second bit of news this evening is, hopefully, I presume you are all avid Women's Own readers. I reckon. I mean, I've seen you lot in the Outside Bride, and you all strike me as target audience for Women's Own. And obviously not. That's pure Alan sarcasm. But if you got this week's with Stacey Solomon, what's her problem? Slammed by fans for being boring. I quite like Stacey Solomon, I think she's alright. But if you went to page 13, you would see an article about swearing in front of children. And if you zoom in, I think this is backwards. I'm sorry this is backwards, it's because I'm using the front camera. But anyway, there's an article on Emily, and she is a avid no, you don't swear in front of children. So if you fancy picking up Women's Own, we don't make any money out of that. But you know, if you want to buy it and read the article about Emily, then feel free. We would love the fact that you wanted to do that. So that's this week's Woman's Own, the one with Stacey Solomon not looking happy. Which does beg a completely... I have this massive issue with UK media that I'll save for Alan's Rants one day. And unfortunately, these magazines are all part of Alan's Rants. But this is not the place for Alan's Rants. So, covered why Emily's not here. Checked over Woman's Own. Got some fab questions. I'm going to cover the suit. So this is my wedding suit. So when we got married in a church in Swanage, near Swanage in Dorset, I actually got married in a blue suit, and then on our way to the reception, I got changed into a yellow suit. Now the story goes that long before I met Emily, I was never getting married. I was having a lot of fun as a single guy, and I said, if I ever get married, I'm going to get married in a yellow suit. So when I proposed to Emily, one of my friends texted me and went, well, I presume you're getting married in a yellow suit then. So I didn't feel it was appropriate to do the church bit in a yellow suit, but I felt, because our reception was in a field, in a marquee, but I felt a yellow suit was totally acceptable for that, and I thought I'd treat you all to it. Now, I've got one other story I'm going to share, but more importantly, as I was putting it on, I found stuff in the pockets. So this was my handkerchief for when Emily cried when she saw me and I saw her, to make sure she was okay. And in this pocket, I've got my pocket handkerchief, which has seen better days. But I also found, we talked about our magician the other week, I found a card from our magician in my top pocket. It says, Emily wrote, I love you even though you look like a bowl of custard. So that's what Emily said to me on our wedding day. I love you even though you look like a bowl of custard. But once again, that's backwards. So I may put a picture on that later on. So anyway, 5 years later, I've put my suit back on. It still fits. Is a little bit tight, which I'm a bit upset about because I'm actually trying to lose a bit of weight at the moment. So gutted it's a little bit tight, but you know, I just feel a bit more James Bond fitted. And I just feel I should show you the inside. There you go. Anyway, story of the suit. So I decided I was going to have a yellow suit involved in my wedding with Emily. Our wedding. And as you can imagine, buying a yellow suit, thank you Charlotte, buying a yellow suit isn't actually that easy. You don't walk into Burton's or any other kind of high street suit. Marx's don't sell a yellow suit, nor does anyone else. So bit of research, found out pretty much I was getting one made in Hong Kong and Hong Kong, made to measure. That was what I was going to do. So my choices were, I fly to Hong Kong and I get measured up and I have a mega suit. I didn't do that. I did not fly to Hong Kong. That would have been a way more rock and roll story. What I did do was find a company who flew someone from Hong Kong to England, and then you go and meet this guy and it goes from there. So I arranged to go and see this person, and this person was in the Holiday Inn Express in Reading. So we drove to Reading, we lived in Southampton, not an issue. And the instruction said, go straight past reception, go to room 33 and just knock on the door and wait. I've seen enough Hollywood films in my time to be a bit worried by now. Emily's with me, so she's harder than me, luckily. So I had security with me, so I was all right. So we went up to room 33. I knocked on the door and walked in. Thank goodness we didn't get mugged there and then. But what we did then find was a guy from Hong Kong, and all over the bed were all these colour swatches and everything else. So yellow's pretty obvious, so we went straight to the yellow, picked a lining, job done. Hopefully I don't look too much like the mask. He then asked me to take my top off. He took some pictures of me with my top off, said it was about getting the fit right, so that's fine. And then he asked me for my credit card, which I then gave him, which he then swiped more than a couple of £100 off of. Yes, don't hold that against me. And then we walked out. So here I am, I've given the guy money and topless photos of myself, praying in Reading, and praying that these don't appear on the internet anytime soon. Luckily they didn't. 2 weeks later, this suit turned up in the post and I wore it on our wedding day. It's still got mud. Sorry, excuse my sliders. It's still got mud from our wedding here. So very exciting. Anyway, on with Ask an Expert, because I spent 10 minutes waffling, and apologies, Emily will tell me off when she watches this back. Right, we have 2 questions this evening. We have question 1 is from Lesley. Question 1 is a biggie. Let me just find the question. There it is. Thanks, Rosemary. Question 1. Lesley says, question for the peeps who already had their wedding. How many people did you invite overall? How many for the day? How many did you cater for in the evening? Did it all get eaten? Did you miscalculate? I've been to so many weddings where the evening food barely gets touched, and it makes my heart sink thinking of the waste of food and money. First of all, Lesley, I think that's a really interesting question, because personally, I've been to loads of weddings where there hasn't been enough food in the evening. So clearly your friends are more generous than my friends have been over the years. So first of all, can I come to your wedding, please? Because I like to eat a lot. Second of all, onto the serious matter of catering. It is really tricky because, let's say for conversationally, you've got 100 people during the day and, another 50 in the evening. You don't need to provide food for 150 people in the evening because that's just not going to happen. But probably catering for somewhere between 50% to 2/3 in the evening, I reckon is something you should be looking at. Now, you mentioned you got picnics and you double cake and everything. So interesting you say double cake, because that made me think about things like having cheese and biscuits and a sweet cart and all these other just food around. So it might not be that you actually cater in the evening, you don't do a hog roast or something like that. But by the time you've got the extra cake and perhaps some cheese and biscuits and perhaps some, a sweetie cart or something like that, then there's a food around. You talked about like your friends eating before they came in the evening, and timings being a massively key part to that. So yeah, that's got to be factored in. Sounds stupid, but I eat at sort of 5 with the kids, so by the time I would dump them and run out to a wedding at 7, I'd have eaten, but I'd have wanted a snack about 9 personally. Other things to think about is, what about food to order? I know some caterers who literally will do food to order and charge per hot dog, bacon roll, etc., etc. You sort of agree a minimum spend with them. It's like a bar where they go, as long as there's 100 people, then they don't charge you for the bar. There are caterers who will do a minimum quantity, and then after that it's price per bacon roll type thing. Sorry, red wine. Emily's away. So yes, thoughts are, Lesley, that definitely not catering for 100% of the people. Somewhere in the evening for sort of 50% to 2/3, absolutely maximum, and that's going to be based on you knowing your guests. If you know your guests are ones who like to eat a lot of food, then hit the 2/3. If not, then the 50% is absolutely acceptable. And if it's more buffet-y rather than per head food, then that, once again, it will just spread a bit further. But then also, if it's per head food, then you might be able to control the cost a bit better. I hope that helps. I know you had a good chat with a couple of others when you posted the question, so I'm hoping. Rosemary's put, we are catering of 50% of the adults as ours is at 9 p.m, but we will have loads of cakes and sweet table. Exactly. So yeah, not even catering for the children there. Hopefully at 9 p.m. they are all in bed. But yes, I know, Rosemary, I can do things like that. But catering for 50% of the adults as ours is at 9 p.m. is probably the way forward. And like I say, with some sweet carts or cheese and biscuits or some other nibbly bits, peanuts. Does anyone have peanuts at weddings? Is that just me? Stuff like that is definitely the way forward. Now, our second question. I hope that answers that. Belinda, evening sir, looking the part. Thank you, Belinda. I thought I'd dress up as Emily wasn't here. I'm on the lookout for the next 11 days. I'm not. That's a joke. So I just thought I wanted to look dapper this evening. Oh, my pocket hanky's dropped back down. Right, what are we up to? Question 2 is a cracker. Lesley, I feel like I brushed over your question, but I think I hope that answers it. 50% to 2/3, but with some periphery food is certainly the way forward in my opinion. And I did chat with Emily before she left, and she agrees, because she truly is the expert. I just happened to put a few marquees up. Right, okay, question 2. Sorry, I'm just trying to drive at the same time as talking. We all know we can't multitask. Sylvie says, good morning. Good morning, Sylvie. Could you give me your advice on what to get to cover hay bales to seat during our ceremony? I have 80 to cover, so need something affordable rather than expensive blankets. Thank you. Cool. Sylvie, another fab question, because obviously in the Outside Bride we have copious amounts of outdoor weddings, and at a lot of those outdoor weddings we all love the hay bales because they look absolutely fantastic in the pictures. They're just amazing, and as long as you can find a supplier who's happy enough to drop them off and pick them up and take them away again, then you're laughing, because actually they're quite affordable when you do it that way round. As for covering them, it's quite tricky. So there's a few ins and outs. So I know some suppliers, if you're buying them, it's very different. But if you're renting them, and they get broken or they get wet, then the supplier really isn't happy about that, and then they're probably going to lump some costs on you somewhere. But it doesn't rain in our British summer, so that's not going to happen, and none of your guests are going to get drunk and kick the hay bales apart or throw them around, because that's not going to happen. That only happens in my world. So that case, you want to cover them. Now, I did have this conversation again with Emily before she left today. Now, the question is, do you want to cover them? Because actually they can look fantastic, just rustic and natural, scattered out, whether it's for, I'm just trying to think, it is for the ceremony, whether it's, if you've got the seating scattered around and sort of like fish, I'm thinking of a fish skeleton, but I can't think of the word. If anyone knows the word, please post it. That just looks fab. Kaylee's put, we have farmers in the family, they suggest straw bales instead of hay because they're apparently less itchy to sit on. That's good advice, thank you, Kaylee. And I know that when I've rung up to order them in the past, I've been offered a choice. So I think that's a relatively standard thing. So thank you for that. As for covering them, if you decide to cover them, so blankets, appreciate that can be expensive. Now, expensive is obviously subjective, and we know you can get blankets from IKEA for about £1.50. Right? We know they're not going to be the best in the world, and we know they're probably not going to last longer than your wedding, and we also know that you don't want 80 blankets after your wedding. If you do, then feel free to ring us up to pass them on to someone else. We'll happily get rid of them or take them from you. But what we were thinking is of a couple of options is material on the roll, perhaps some nice sort of gingham, that would be me, gingham material. We know Range does reasonable material on the roll, cutting them into big rectangles and putting them over. Thought that could be a nice alternative. Or you could go down, I've absolutely lost my thought, blanket. So blanket material on the roll. You could look at, you get tablecloths or white sheets, or I thought about the sheets option personally. I quite like the idea of them being white in a kind of pure and natural way, juxtaposed to the rusticness of the hay bale. Emily obviously poo-pooed that because she's in charge of aesthetics in our world. I'm going back to material on the roll because you've got such a broad choice. But we've had 2 people to suggest go for straw, not hay. But I also know a lot of us who aren't in the know just say hay because that's what we're thinking. Right, Sylvie, I hope that answers your question. So to paraphrase, material on the roll or some sheets or blankets from IKEA. It really, depends what your budget is for that. And I appreciate no one really wants to pay anything for covering up a hay bale, straw bale. Sharon has asked, I'm having an outdoor wedding and not burlap. Sorry, Sharon. I'll come back to your question because Belinda's added on to the hay bales. Burlap is cheap and good for bales. Also, might need to have a couple of chairs for grannies. Yeah, good point. Always worth having a couple of chairs or a couple of benches, something like that. Sharon's asked, I'm having an outdoor wedding. Not much clue as to power generator for likes of power for band. Does lighting inside marquee need power? Would a photo booth need power or go for the cheaper booth style? And would guests be horrified at portable loos? Oh, Sharon, this is a big question. So first thoughts are, if you've hired a marquee, has the marquee company not suggested a generator to you? Because I think a marquee company should be talking power with you, especially if they're putting lighting up inside their marquee. The short answer is everything you've mentioned there needs power. So the question is how much power. So I know what we did as a marquee company, and I've since, we closed that a year or so ago, but since speaking to a friend of mine who works for a generator company, just to confirm this, we say nothing smaller than a 40 kVA generator. Now you can go smaller, you could perhaps look at 23 kVA or something like that, but it really will depend on the distribution board, what's going to trip where, what's plugging in, are they LED lights, are they traditional lights? It really is a very open-ended question unless you're an absolute top-notch. I nearly said expert. I'm an expert. You know what I mean. Unless you're a professional in the generator world. So, looking at 40 kVA, you could possibly do 23 kVA. 23 kVA is turbo behind a car, and 40 a big car like a Land Rover type thing. But 40 kVA is a big one that will need to be brought in. What's your other question? So really, I would go back to your marquee company and say you want a generator. In my experience, I've never seen any exorbitant prices when quoted by marquee companies. They all seem much the muchness. A few years ago, every generator ever from any marquee company was about £400 to £500, and depending on whether it's delivered, included fuel, etc., etc. So that's what you're looking at for power, and it is essential, because you've got to think fridges, you might have coolers for the bar, you've got power for the band, lighting inside, lighting outside. Your photo booth's going to need power. There are lots of things that's probably going to need power that you might not necessarily have thought of at this stage, or you might have done. Apologies, you may have done. But I would definitely speak to them about that. They will know if they're putting distribution in as well as lighting, they will know what's needed for their distribution board, and that's really, really important. Because you could go and hire a generator that doesn't connect to their distribution board. So ensuring that the connections are right, and they're going to say things like single phase, three phase, 32 amp, that's the sort of stuff they're going to say. So the connector on the generator needs to pair up with the connector on the distribution board, and they need to be within reach of each other. What else would a photo booth need power or go for the cheaper booth style? I don't know what the cheaper booth style is, unless that's like a Polaroid camera type thing. But that question is, what do you want? If you're going to get a generator in, you might as well use it, and then it opens up the world for bouncy castles and anything else that takes power. And would the guests be horrified at portable loos? Are you talking the blue portaloos? Hi Charlotte. So I personally don't have an issue with the blue portable loos, but I know many people will. There are such a thing as posh loos, where they bring in like a block, and there'll be ladies on one side, gents on the other side, and they're just as lovely. It really, I'm going to put this out there, it really depends on how rustic your outdoor wedding is. If you're going for kind of clean lines, then my thoughts would be go for the posh loos, and we know companies who do themed ones as well. Like you can get a posh loo up on a trailer that's themed like a shepherd's hut, beach hut type thing. Or if it's really rustic, then go for a portable loo. Put a poll in. Would you like me to put a poll in the group? If you want me to put a poll in, just say yes, and we will find out if people will be horrified at the thought of a portable loo, and we will let the general populace decide. Was there anything else in your question? So speak to your marquee company first. Hopefully they're going to say things like 40 kVA, 23 kVA. Yes. Rustic. So portable loos, would work. Make sure you've got enough. They don't have lights in, so you're going to need a light right above them. So you can put like a floodlight up on a pole up close that will make light inside, but they don't come with lights in. Or the other option is they'll have vents, so you could put like a solar powered light inside and thread the wire through, or some battery powered lights inside, something like that. But the portable loos don't come with lights inside them, so that would need to be thought about. But the posh loos will, and once again that would plug into your generator. I know it's a faff, all these extra things, And genuinely, that's where, you know, whether you've got a wedding planner, or whether asking in this group or asking an expert, or whether you wanted a one-on-one session with myself and Emily that we can provide, we can go through all of those nitty-gritty bits to make sure, you know, T's are crossed and I's are dotted, or any of those people I've just mentioned would be able to do that to help you out. Or torches as favours. Oh, Belinda's suggested torches as favours. That's a fantastic idea as well. I mean, solar lights scattered around outside we love. Battery powered festoon, solar powered festoon lighting. There are lots of ways of getting by to create more light, but I do think you're going to need a generator from what you've said, unless there's buildings nearby to plug into. So speak to your marquee company about that. Right. I'm going to draw a line under it there. Well, unless anyone's got any questions, I'm going to stop waffling is the line I'm going to draw under. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask them right now. I'm happy to stay on for another. Sharon, absolutely my pleasure. Definitely speak to them. I'd be, if they can't help you, find out what they've got and ask the question in here, and I'll try and give my tuppence worth. But I'd be very surprised if they can't help you. And I've never known a marquee company not be competitive, but always worth benchmarking that price somewhere else as well. Cool. So yeah, if you do have another question, feel free to post it right now. Otherwise, as always, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight on Ask an Expert. You've made me feel very welcome in my yellow suit, which clearly I love wearing. This is actually the second time since we got married we've worn it. We wore it once for a photo shoot for one of these styled shoots that at the time I knew absolutely nothing about. But Emily said, come along, we're wearing our wedding stuff again. And then it's been in a cupboard for 4.5 years since then. So very pleased it still fits. Quite happy with it. Obviously I can't wear it regularly because I would look like an absolute Burke. I did say Burke. I tried to keep it as polite as possible. I'd look like an absolute Burke walking down the street. My Hawaiian shirts are bad enough and the kids are starting to react to them. So it's going to go back, and I may save it for another year. Thank you everyone. Thank you to Lesley, Sylvie and Sharon for your questions. Have a fantastic evening, and I look forward to speaking to you all again next week. Bye.